And until last weekend, I believed love meant learning how to bend without breaking. I was wrong. For 6 months, I'd been engaged to a man I thought I understood. A man I thought understood me. I work as a librarian. A community library. Not a marble-floored landmark with donors' names etched into the walls. Just a brick building wedged between a daycare and a laundromat. I catalog books. I help kids with homework. I run literacy programs for adults who were failed by the system early and are brave enough to try again now. It's not glamorous. It's not impressive in the way people at cocktail parties mean that word. But it's stable, it's meaningful, and it's mine. My boyfriend, Evan, works in marketing. Agency life. Big clients. Bigger egos. He wears success well. Tailored suits, confident posture, knows how to talk about growth curves and market dominance without sounding like he's bragging, almost. When we met 2 years ago, that difference was the point. He told me I was grounding, that his world was loud and exhausting and performative, and I felt like quiet air. He said being with me reminded him there was more to life than status updates and resumes. I believed him. The change didn't come all at once. It never does. It came in comments that sounded like suggestions. Gentle, reasonable suggestions. Maybe don't wear that sweater to dinner with my colleagues. Maybe upgrade your car when you can. Maybe we shouldn't suggest that restaurant. It's a little casual. I told myself this was compromise, that this was what merging lives looked like. 8 months ago, I started noticing how he introduced me. Not incorrectly, just selectively. I wasn't a librarian. I worked at a cultural institution. I didn't help kids learn to read. I managed community programming. When I asked him why, he laughed softly and said, "I'm just framing it in a way my friends understand." I should have paid attention to that word. Framing. Last week was our engagement party. His parents hosted it at a country club outside the city. White tablecloths, valet parking, a guest list that leaned heavily in his favor, colleagues, clients, friends who vacationed internationally and compared watches without irony. I wore a suit, a nice one, rented but well cut. Evan noticed immediately. "That's what you're wearing?" "It looks fine," I said. "It's a rental, I can tell." "No one else will." "I will, and my friends will." The drive there was quiet. At the party, his friends were polite in the way people are when they've already decided you don't belong. They asked what I did. I answered honestly. "Librarian." They smiled, nodded, shifted their bodies back toward Evan. One of them, his loudest friend, made jokes about books, about how adorable it must be to work with children. Each joke landed. Each laugh felt rehearsed. I smiled. I didn't bite. Then came the toast. His best friend stood up and praised Evan's ambition, his future, his trajectory. And then she mentioned me. "She's found someone who supports her in his own way," she said. "Someone content with simple things. It's kind of sweet. Shows Evan isn't superficial. He's willing to date down if the person is nice enough." People laughed. Not hard, not cruelly. But Evan laughed too. That's when something inside me went still. Later on the balcony, I asked him why. He said I was being sensitive. That making a scene would be worse. That sometimes you just go along with things. Near the end of the night, one of his friends asked about our honeymoon. I stayed quiet. Evan leaned in toward them, lowered his voice, but not enough. "My friends think you're embarrassing," he said. "Try harder." I was standing right there. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded once. Noted. I set my drink down, got my coat, and stepped outside. I never went back in. I didn't go home with him that night. Instead, I called my older sister Margaret from the curb outside the country club. The valet stand was still busy. Engines humming, laughter drifting through the glass doors behind me like nothing irreversible had just happened. "Can you pick me up?" I asked. There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." She didn't ask anything else. Margaret arrived 20 minutes later in sweatpants and a hoodie, hair pulled back, eyes already sharp with concern. She took one look at my face and reached across the console to squeeze my hand. "Do you want to talk?" "Not yet." "Okay." That was the first kindness of the night. At her place, she made tea. I didn't drink and offered the guest room. I sat on the edge of the bed instead, heels still on, phone buzzing relentlessly in my hand. Evan called 6 times on the drive. I didn't answer. Texts followed. "Where did you go? You're overreacting. We need to talk about this like adults." Overreacting. That word echoed in my head as I finally took my shoes off and sat cross-legged on the bed, staring at the wall. I thought about the last 8 months, about how often I'd adjusted myself without realizing it, about how many small edits I'd accepted, about how being low maintenance had slowly turned into being low priority. And then I did something I hadn't planned. I opened my banking app. When we got engaged, we'd opened a joint account, wedding expenses only, deposits, vendors, shared responsibility. My name was on it, full access, equal authority. I transferred every dollar I had contributed back into my personal account. I left his half untouched. Then I called the bank. "I'd like to remove myself from a joint account," I said calmly, voice steady. They emailed the paperwork. I signed it digitally. 30 minutes later, my name was gone. I stared at the confirmation email longer than I expected. It felt quiet. Next, the wedding planning app. Shared spreadsheets, vendor contacts, seating charts that already had arguments baked into them. My name listed as co-planner. I removed myself, deleted my access, changed nothing else. Then came the contracts. The venue first, emergency line, late night coordinator. "I need to withdraw from the event," I said. "My name is on the contract." They explained I'd lose my deposit. That's fine. They removed my liability, sent confirmation. Photographer, caterer, DJ florist, band, one by one. Each call peeled something off me. An expectation, a performance, a future I'd been shrinking myself to fit. By the time I finished, it was nearly 2 a.m. Margaret knocked once and peeked in. "What are you doing?" she asked, eyes flicking between my laptop and phone. "I'm unembedding myself," I said. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. "From what?" "From someone who thinks I'm embarrassing." Her jaw tightened. I told her everything. The comments, the editing, the toast, the whisper. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said, "You're not marrying him." "No." She nodded like that was already decided. "Good." I slept for maybe 3 hours. When I woke up, my phone was a disaster. 47 messages, missed calls, voicemails. The progression was almost textbook. Anger. Confusion. Panic. The last text read, "What did you do?" The venue called. They said my name is the only one on the contract now. I made coffee. Didn't answer. Margaret leaned against the counter, mug in hand. "She knows," she said. "Good. What's your plan?" "Stay here a few days. Figure things out." "You can stay as long as you want." I nodded, then added, "The apartment lease is in my name. He moved in 6 months ago. He's not on it." Margaret smiled, small, proud. "Then you're not homeless. You're just done." My phone rang. "Evan." I answered and put it on speaker. "What did you do?" he demanded. "Everyone's calling me." I removed myself from the wedding. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not getting married." There was silence, then a sharp laugh. "You can't be serious." "I am." "Over last night, I said I was sorry. You texted that I was overreacting. That's not an apology." "Fine, I'm sorry," he snapped. "Happy? Can we fix this?" "No." "Why not?" "Because last night wasn't a slip. It was a reveal." "You told your friends I embarrass you," I said. "You told me to try harder while I was standing there." I was frustrated. "You were honest." "That's not fair." "What's not fair," I said evenly, "is being engaged to someone who's ashamed of me." "You're ending our engagement over one comment?" "I'm ending it because that comment confirmed months of behavior." He went quiet. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked. "Beg?" "There's nothing you can do." "That's it?" "That's it." "You're ruining everything." "I'm removing myself," I said. "You can still have the wedding, just not with me." I hung up before he could say my name like it meant something again. I thought the hardest part would be over once I said the words out loud. I'm not getting married. I was wrong. The hardest part came after, when everyone else decided they were entitled to an opinion about my dignity. It started with Evan's friends. Texts at first, then calls. I didn't answer most of them, but the messages stacked up anyway, each one louder than the last. "How could you abandon him like that? Do you know how humiliating this is for him? You're throwing away 2 years over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I responded to exactly one message. It was from Rachel, his best friend, the one who'd given the toast, the one who smiled while she said dating down like it was a charming quirk. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "You're being cruel. Evan is devastated. Everyone knows you're sensitive. This could have been handled privately." I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back. "Let me be clear. There was no misunderstanding. Evan told me to my face that I embarrass him and need to try harder. I'm not performing for people who already decided I'm not good enough. He's free to find someone who meets your standards. I'm out." Her reply came fast. "You're ruining his life over one comment." I typed slower this time. "He ruined our engagement when he chose your approval over my dignity." No response after that. Then came his parents. His mother called first. Her voice was already shaking when I answered. "Clara, please," she said. "Every couple fights. Cold feet are normal." "He called me embarrassing to his friends while I was standing there," I said calmly. "Would you marry someone who did that to you?" Silence. Then, softer. "He was under a lot of stress." "Stress reveals character," I said. "And his character showed me he's ashamed of me." His father got on the line next. "What do you want?" he asked bluntly. "Money? We'll cover your deposit losses. Just come back." "I don't want money," I said. "I want respect." "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I replied, "but it's mine to make." They didn't call again. By the end of the week, I went back to the apartment, midday, while Evan was at work. Margaret came with me. His things were everywhere. Shoes by the door, suit jackets hanging like they owned the place, evidence of a life that assumed permanence. I packed quietly. Not angrily, not dramatically. I boxed only what was mine. Books, clothes, photos, the small, ordinary objects that had survived the edits. I left my engagement ring on the kitchen counter. No note. The lease was in my name. I'd already given notice. He came later for his things, left the key with the doorman, didn't try to see me. A mutual friend, one of the few who didn't pick sides, told me Evan was still holding the wedding. Not the wedding. A new beginnings celebration. Same venue, same guest list, same story, just rewritten to preserve his image. They were telling people we'd mutually decided to part ways. Mutual. I suppose it was mutual in the way gravity is mutual when you stop holding on. 2 weeks later, I moved into a smaller apartment across town. Cheaper, quieter, mine. At work, an older coworker, Janice, who'd been married longer than I'd been alive, caught me in the break room. "I heard your engagement ended," she said gently. "Yeah. Want to talk about it?" "Not really." She nodded, then said, "Just one thing." I looked up. "If someone makes you feel small," she said, "they're the wrong person. Job title doesn't matter. Love doesn't require shrinking." I swallowed. Everyone else had told me I was dramatic. Janice told me I was right. That night, lying alone in my new apartment, I finally felt the full weight of it. Not grief. Relief. Time did what it always does. It moved forward whether I was ready or not. Weeks passed. Then months. The noise faded. The opinions dried up. People found new things to gossip about. New weddings. New scandals. New targets. I settled into my new apartment, a one-bedroom with uneven floors, and a kitchen window that faced a brick wall. It was smaller than the old place, quieter too. No echo of someone else's expectations. No pressure to curate. At work, nothing changed. Kids still needed help with homework. Adults still stumbled through first chapters like they were relearning how to trust themselves. Books still waited patiently to be opened. That constancy mattered more than I'd realized. 3 months after the engagement ended, I saw Evan again. It was at the grocery store. I was comparing 2 brands of pasta when I felt it. That familiar awareness of being watched. I looked up, and there he was at the end of the aisle, basket in hand, looking thinner than I remembered. Tired. He smiled, tentative, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. I turned my cart and started down the next aisle. He followed. "Clara," he said, "can we talk?" "No. Please, 5 minutes." "There's nothing to talk about." "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I've had time to think. I was wrong. I hurt you." I stopped finally and turned to face him. "Good," I said. "I'm glad you figured that out." Hope flickered in his eyes. "Does that mean—" "No." His face fell. "Why not?" "Because you spent months making me feel inadequate," I said evenly. "And then you confirmed it in public." "I've changed," he said. "I'm in therapy. I'm working on why I care so much what other people think." "That's great," I said. "You should keep doing that." "Just not with me?" he asked, voice cracking. "Not with me." "That's not fair." I met his eyes. "Life's not fair. Neither was what you did." I walked away. He didn't follow. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I hope someday you can forgive me." I didn't respond. I blocked the number and went to bed. Forgiveness doesn't require access. 6 months after I left, my life didn't look dramatic from the outside. And that was the point. I worked. I slept well. I read books for pleasure again instead of as an escape. Somewhere in that quiet stretch of time, I started dating Daniel. Not immediately, not as a rebound. There was no grand declaration, no cinematic meet cute. We met at a library fundraiser, one of those small, underfunded events where folding chairs outnumber attendees and everyone pretends lukewarm coffee is part of the charm. He was there because his niece loved the reading program I ran. He stayed afterward to help stack chairs. He asked me what I did. I told him. "Tell me more," he said, and then actually listened. Not the way people listen while waiting to talk about themselves. The real way. Curious, attentive, unedited. A few weeks later, he invited me to a charity event connected to his work. Nothing flashy, just a room full of people who knew each other and didn't need to prove it. When someone asked what I did, Daniel didn't hesitate. "This is Clara," he said. "She's a librarian. She runs incredible community literacy programs. You'd love hearing about them." No pause, no translation, no embarrassment. I felt something loosen in my chest. Afterward, he asked, "Were you comfortable tonight?" "Yes," I said. "Why wouldn't I be?" He shrugged. "I just wanted to make sure." That was it. No performance review, no feedback, no suggestion that I could be better if I tried harder. That night, standing in my kitchen, I thought back to the engagement party, to the whisper, to the way Evan had thought he was helping me improve, managing me toward acceptability. What he'd actually done was give me clarity. When Evan told me I was embarrassing, he thought he was offering feedback. What he really offered was a map out. The next morning, when he saw my name missing from bank accounts, contracts, and wedding plans, he thought I was being dramatic. I wasn't. That silence wasn't compliance. It was an exit strategy. Some people hear you're embarrassing and try harder. They change. They shrink. They audition for approval. I heard it and realized the only embarrassing thing would have been staying. I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because I finally loved myself enough not to negotiate my dignity. I'm 32 years old, I'm a librarian, and I'm with someone who thinks that's more than enough. And that's the difference. That's everything.